Hello, YouTube. Welcome to my channel. I just thought I'd do a live here. This is marriage, politics, and sports. And of course, this is a little political reaction to the Shapiro bombing. And one of the things I wanted to say is the political violence has been ramped up. But the one thing we can't deny is that the biggest form of the political violence that we saw was actually the January 6th attack. So that cannot be taken off the table. But the rhetoric that's going on today, because Donald J. Trump became president, is still unwarranted. And I think the bombing of Shapiro's house, even though it's not connected to the violence of January 6th, I think a seal was broken on that day. And now it's okay for some people to take out their deranged thoughts and whatever they are, or violently against their opponents. Now, since January 6th, we've seen violence off and on, but the bombing of the Tesla dealerships and those kind of things kind of was a precursor to what happened to Shapiro. So now the guy who did it is under scrutiny, and guess what? He's not a Republican, right? He's just a Looney Tune who is more of a socialist than anything else, which is more of an idealistic ideologue that would more align with the Democrats on the far left. And so who knows what his problem was, but if you go back to his history, he probably shouldn't have been free for the domestic violence things that he was doing and the fact that he was on strong meds and he wasn't taking them. And his mother tried to get him committed, and they the police ignored her. Anyway, we're gonna hear some of this stuff, and I'll react to what we see when I just played a news clip. I just wanted to rant a little bit. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. This is unfortunate, and a little bit of it is chickens coming home to roost. And thank God Shapiro and his family are okay.
At the Pennsylvania governor's residence while Governor Shapiro and his family slept inside. Pennsylvania State Police said that Shapiro and his family were evacuated around 2 o'clock Sunday after the home was set on fire. No one was injured, but as you can see, the fire caused significant damage to the home.
We do know that this attack was targeted. We don't know the person's specific motive yet, but we do know a few truths. First, this type of violence is not okay.
Joining me now, CNN's Gene Casares. Wow, this is, Josh Shapiro. They were sleeping in the home. They had just celebrated Passover, and someone set their home on fire. What can you tell us?
Well, we've got the criminal complaint now, and in fact, we have got a lot of information. First of all, the charges. The top charge is attempted homicide. Wow. That this person tried to kill the people inside with these homemade incendiary devices. Next, aggravated arson. We also have burglary of a home. And then we have, as the fifth count, terrorism. Cody Balmer is the name of the suspect who has been arrested. He actually had a friend of his, a female, call police to tell them he wanted to turn himself in. He turned himself in. He was given his Miranda rights, but he started to talk. Here's what we know. He said that he walked about a mile to get to the house. And that's when he threw he jumped the fence, threw the first incendiary device into a room. Police tell us that was the piano room. And then it took off. And then he went to the second window he saw and threw a second incendiary device in. That would be the...
Let me stop this right here. One of the first things I thought about this guy getting so close to the governor, the governor doesn't have security. The governor of Pennsylvania, or any governor for that matter, doesn't have security. The state doesn't provide them regular security. This shit doesn't make any sense to me. If we went through Pennsylvania's budget, or any state for that matter, okay, we probably would find waste and abuse or just spending the wrong spending. You mean they don't have enough money to protect the top dude and his family in Pennsylvania, that shit doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I'm saying? Especially with the rhetoric going on now. Trump is Hitler. Trump is this. You know, Crockett talking about knocking, you know, punching, beating people down, all that kind of stuff, right? Nobody on one side coming out against the bombings on Tesla, fire bombings, destroying cars, all that kind of stuff. You think anybody who's in a political position today are safe, even if the rhetoric is coming from one side? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Where the hell is this guy's security? This guy, the dude, if he was more nefarious, the truth of the matter, this could have ended up much, much worse than just a firebomb. I mean, they make movies out of shit like this.
The dining room, it took off. He said it was Heineken beer bottles that he had put gasoline in. He jumped through the second window. He was actually in the mansion at that point, and then finished his business and left. He was asked by police, did you believe that somebody was going to be asleep in the house at that time? He said, yeah, I knew that was a possibility. That's important.
Yeah.
State of mind,
Yeah.
that goes to intent to want to kill who was ever in that home. He said he hated the governor. Now, motive is not in this description right here. He may have told them more, but they don't need motive. They need the elements. But here is what the governor had to say the family was doing the night before.
Hear me on this. We celebrated our faith last night proudly, and in a few hours, we will celebrate our second Seder of Passover again proudly. No one will deter me or my family or any Pennsylvanian from celebrating their faith openly and proudly.
So then the police also asked the defendant, what would you have done if the governor had confronted you in the mansion? He said, I would have taken my hammer and I would have started to hit him. And they found, Sarah, a sledgehammer at his home.
That is terrifying. Gene, I know you got this information just a few moments ago, and you really sort of broke down why terrorism is one of the charges there. I'm sure we will be learning more. Thank you so much for that. It was great.
You know, that's another thought I had. Listen, I mean, the governor, he might be in decent shape, but most people of his age or my age, they can't even remember the last time they were in a physical tussle with somebody who was trying to hurt them. So his family was pretty much defenseless against a crazed guy like this. You know, unless, I mean, he's Pennsylvania, I'm sure he's packing, but I bet you his guns are locked up somewhere that he would have to take 15 minutes to go, you know, get them and get them loose and stuff like that, you know, load them and all that kind of stuff because he has kids in the house. So essentially, he's really unprotected, even if he has weapons, and I'm sure he does. You know, so I'm just saying, it's just crazy. Now he talked about his faith, and they could try to make this into an anti-Semitic thing. It might be, but the truth of the matter is, it doesn't really matter what it was. The guy's motive was, is that this guy was uncovered. Now, what I was going to say to all of this also, and we're going to have more of this, I'm going to put it on there, is that there's too much violent political shit being talked about today on the airwaves, and it goes unchecked. Now, he was right about what he thinks about that there shouldn't be violence on both sides, but we need some more. You know, we didn't hear any of these Democratic voices when they were bombing Tesla dealerships. If it wasn't for Fox News, we probably wouldn't even have heard about the bombings. Right? Because all of the other legacy media just skipped over like it's nothing. One governor was actually praising the fact that Tesla was getting beat down. You know, so I don't know, man. This shit is like chickens coming home to roost, and nobody's safe now.
CNN's Danny Freeman has more now from Philadelphia. It was an extremely troubling and frightening night in Pennsylvania's capital after Governor Josh Shapiro's mansion, the governor's mansion residence, was set on fire intentionally, according to Pennsylvania State Police. The main headline that we learned Sunday afternoon is that there was a suspect taken into custody, 38-year-old Cody Balmer. He'll be charged with attempted murder, terrorism, aggravated arson, and aggravated assault. That's according to the Dauphin County District Attorney. But here's a little bit of a timeline of the best that we understand as to how this all unfolded. On Saturday evening, Governor Josh Shapiro was holding a Passover Seder for the first night of the Jewish holiday of Passover. He was with his family. He had guests over at the governor's residence as well. They all then went to sleep. And then at some point in the middle of the night, just before 2 a.m., Pennsylvania State Police say this man, Balmer, jumped a fence at the governor's residence, evaded state troopers who at that time actually realized that there had been a breach. The man was then able to break into the residence, set fire to the residence, escaped then by jumping back over the fence. He had homemade incendiary devices on him, according to Pennsylvania State Police. Then at 2 a.m., Governor Shapiro said that he and his family and some of his guests were...
Okay, let's not skip over the fact that you said that. Okay, now I'm getting a little bit more information. The state troopers are supposed to protect the governor, and a guy was able to jump over the governor's, go get to the governor's mansion, throw 2 cocktails in the window, actually get in the house. What were these guys doing? I mean, I'm serious. What were they doing? You know, now the governor might not come out and say heads going to roll, but how are these guys going to maintain their jobs if their sole job that night was to protect, or at night, your duty is to protect the governor's mansion. Make sure, I know it's a routine night, and sometimes when things get routine, some guys might get laxed, okay? Because, you know, most people ain't jumping fences and trying to blow up the governor's or burn up the governor's house. But if that's your job, you have to act like tonight's the night somebody's going to do some shit. That's every time you're on duty. So this guy glossed over the fact that the state troopers were supposed to be watching the house. And then they found out it was a breach later on. Why? Because they saw the flames coming out of the window? Is that what you're talking about? A breach once you found out the flames were coming out of the window, or what?
Staying over were woken up by bangs on the door because first responders were alerting him that part of the residence was on fire. Thankfully, though, the fire was in a different part of the building from where the governor, his wife, family, and guests were. And first responders were able to knock that fire down. Amazingly, no one was injured. But again, now there is a multi-agency investigation ongoing into exactly what happened here. The investigation being led by the Pennsylvania State Police, but also being assisted by the FBI. And I just want you to listen to how Governor Shapiro characterized what he was feeling after this entire incident, clearly overwhelmed by the level of support that he's received from so many across the country after this incident. But also he said that he will not be deterred by violence from doing his job or by practicing his faith.
This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other.
All right, Governor. All right. So where was you at the podium when they were bombing Tesla dealerships? Where were you at the podium with all the rhetoric that the president is Hitler and he's an existential whatever, a threat to democracy? You know, or all of this bullshit rhetoric that Crockett is talking about. Where's all of the outrage from your level? That's what I'm saying. So now that you're the victim of it, which is unfortunate, and it's fortunate that your family wasn't hurt and your friends who might have been over the house, because I would imagine there was a lot of people left over after the Seder, you know, where was all this rhetoric? Where was all of this, this stuff before violence happened to you personally? Where was the admonishment of the violent rhetoric? And maybe after this tragic incident that luckily nobody got hurt, more Democrats at your level and above will start trying to check the other ones who are talking violence. So you are correct. There should be violence on either side. But your side, this time, let a whole bunch of rhetoric go, and they energized crazy ass guys who tried to do what they did to you. Even up to and even before that, crazy ass guys who tried to take out the president when he was on a campaign trail. I mean, the CNN and MSNBC actually said that there was no real attempt almost. They wanted to poo-poo it that maybe there wasn't no real bullet. It was a shard of glass. So all I'm just trying to say is, yeah, we need to tone down that rhetoric, and let's just get back to have ideological differences that we should be able to work out and govern the people, make government for the people, by the people, no matter what side you are. And you guys should acknowledge some of the good stuff that's going on in the Trump administration, as opposed to just saying, we hate this guy.
Directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay.
Now, Pennsylvania State Police investigators say that this investigation is ongoing, and they're also reviewing security protocols at the governor's residence. At this time, CNN has not been able to get in contact with an attorney for Balmer. Danny Freeman, CNN, Philadelphia.
They should have led with that. Their security protocols for protecting the governor of this state should not only wake up the people in Pennsylvania, but every state. You're a governor. I mean, I remember what happened to Gretchen Whitmer back in the day. They tried to even kidnap her, for heaven's sakes. So I don't see how a governor's going to be walking around, willy-nilly looking up at skyscrapers and thinking everything is okay. It's not. The people in the United States are getting crazier. Part of it and a lot of it because of the political rhetoric. It's gotten out of control and freely aired over the legacy media.
What questions do you still have? What is standing out to you?
Well, the biggest thing is everyone's going to ask, how could he get over the fence and into the house without the troopers finding him? As you look at the property now, it's actually fairly decent from the fence line to the house. It's 2 a.m. And anytime the first time something happens, it's really tough to anticipate that. No one's ever broken over the fence and lit the residence on fire. So that's not what they're expecting. They probably had some type of protrusion alarm that someone got over, and they were looking for someone who was on the grounds, maybe looking to, do some graffiti or something along those lines, because they haven't had something this serious. So I think when they look at the after action, and they're going to be very critical, they're going to need technology, sensors, lighting, motion detection lighting to help them do it, have a dog on presence, up the number of people that are on the residence in the middle of the night, because now it's coming to the point where this is going to be prevalent.
See, this guy is saying what I said before. I didn't see him say this. Like, the point is that if you're on watch duty to protect the governor and everything is so routine, that's when it's the most dangerous, because, you don't expect it. That's why the people who are charged to watch the governor have to be always thinking that tonight is the night. Tonight is the night. Somebody's going to do some shit. And if nothing happens, then okay. But then tomorrow's the night. And then the next day's the night. You're supposed to be on 100% full alert. None of this bullshit, because we're paying for you to protect this guy as if tonight was the night. You know what I'm saying?
Violence is starting to happen. As Andy McCabe said last time, there's no federal domestic terrorism charges. There are state ones. So that's going to come into play on the prosecution side. But I think really what's going to happen is you're going to see a much bigger detail, and you're going to see more permanent personnel around his residence and his family.
It is so striking to know that this person was able to make it inside the governor's residence. And the way they were describing this, that this person, they said, was quite methodical in how they did this. They had these homemade incendiary devices, as you and Danny noted, and then they were back over the fence, and that they were apprehended, I believe, just a little time ago. It is remarkable that all of that was able to happen. And we look at the images. This was a very, very serious situation.
Oh, absolutely. If he had a better layout of the house and understanding maybe where they're at, and he was more determined to actually do harm to them, I think you could have a very different situation. I think probably when he went in and lit the fire, the people that were on call at that time were going directly to the family to get him out. And it probably lessened the number of people that were able to look for him, because you want to deal with his safety first. Again, I think you're going to see a lot bigger presence when they get this house repaired and he goes back in there, that they're going to have more permanent personnel around there. You're going to have probably dedicated people, and then you're going to have to harden the entries and like that. So when I do security assessments, that's what I look at. If someone gets over the first barrier, how long does it take them to get to the next barrier? How quickly can they get through that? Because that all determines what you have to put in place to understand that if someone's motivated and they want to get in there, how fast they can do it.
And we again don't know the motive yet. We do know, as the governor said, he says this was a targeted attack. That's what law enforcement and the DA also said. What do you read into that at this point?
I think they've talked about religion only because, one, he just made a post about Passover. And I think that's the one that sticks out the most. But you're really going to have to start now doing the investigation electronically. Has he posted something on social media? Does he belong to any groups that are anti-Semitism type groups? Is he affiliated with anyone? Did he text anyone about this? Also look at when he bought these items to make these incinerating devices, because you look at when the governor posted that photo to how quick, and depending on the devices he had, how quick he could make them. He may have already had this in plan, and it just happened to be that he posted the pictures and people are linking it to it. But also look at some of the laws he just passed and some things that happened. But that's where the investigation is going to come in to put motive. And they did allude to the probable cause warrant that's going to be coming out. And it may have something that he said that really gives the authorities the idea of why he did it.
Yeah. And they said we should have that in the next, they said several hours. We will see if that transpired, but certainly more details to come. Rob, thanks.
Yes. Listen, all I'm trying to say is, we don't know what the motive is. I'm not so sure it has anything to do with anti-Semitism, because I just don't believe that. But it could. But I think this guy has more derangement than whether this guy, Shapiro, was a practicing Jew. I really do. I think he's more disturbed. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if he's not Jewish himself. So I think it's more ideological. It could be some anti-Semitism, Semitism wrapped in there. But I mean, regardless, right? I mean, the governor and his family dodged a bullet. They really did. I mean, because if this guy was looking for them, whoever was watching this place gave this guy all the time he needed to do some serious damage. And I'm not talking about the fire damage. I'm talking about the fire damage. Anyway, so listen, I'm glad the governor, I mean, he's a kind of big name in a Democratic Party. He probably should speak a little more, because from what I understand, he's a stand-up kind of dude. And he should be talking a little bit more, as opposed to having people like Jasmine Crockett talk for the Democrats or AOC. He probably should have a bigger voice. So anyway, especially now talking against violence. It should unfortunately happen after he was a victim, but his words probably would have carried more weight if he would have just said that shit when all that stuff is happening in the first place over the airwaves and being promoted by some people in the Democratic ranks, and then whoever's on the Republican side saying shit like that, or conservative side. And I haven't really heard a lot of violence on that side lately, because they got the bully pulpit right now. So anyway, listen, it's only one America, man. And we have to somehow find a way to live together, because it's us against the world. And if we go down, then actually, not only do we go down, the whole world will go down, because, America is the beacon that keeps all this shit together. Anyway, Art Payne, Marriage, Politics, and Sports, over and out.